So what is it like to remember? What is it like to remember being home and being whole and knowing that no matter what the outer circumstances are, no matter if it looks like the world wants to give you your joy or take it away, no matter what any of the circumstances or situations of your life are, that there is complete wholeness, that there is a knowing, a deep-seated knowing that you are one with an infinite light and an infinite life. We are here on this path, I believe, in unity we teach, as an expression of the evolution of God consciousness. That's been demonstrated in master teachers throughout the ages. And we're here exploring this concept in our 6-week series. We're diving into the book Handbook for the Spirit. If you don't have this book, it's sold out, and all of the prints that we can find anywhere seem to be gone. But you may be able to find it on abebooks.com or at used bookstores. But this is a collection of original writings by sacred individuals who have shared their experience of the evolution of God consciousness. Last week we talked about that experience that we have in the human condition where we feel like there is a hole, there is something missing. And we go about our lives strategically trying to, consciously or unconsciously, pull in God, pull in a sense of peace, pull in a sense of life, pull in a sense of power, pull in a sense of home to satiate that feeling, that urge of feeling misplaced, disconnected, dismayed, uncomfortable. But life isn't always about being comfortable, is it? Really. If we look at life, we have our ideas of what we want life to be, but the experience of life, if you ask most people, rarely you would hear someone say the answer that, oh, it's always comfortable. But does that mean it's not always divine? Does that mean it's not always perfect? We have interesting concepts of perfection and imperfection in our human language, in our human condition. I'm going to start today's talk with a reading that I shared last time on that homesickness. It was in the chapter by Stephen Levine, and he said this: "There is in all of our strivings a profound homesickness for God. When we touch another, we touch God. When we look at a flower, its radiance, its fragrance, its stillness is another moment's experience of something deeper within. When we hold a baby, we hear extraordinary music. When we hear this extraordinary music, when we look into the eyes of a great saint, what draws us in is that deep homesickness for our true nature, for the peace and the healing that is our birthright. This homesickness for God directs us towards the healing we took birth for, the coming into pure being that out of a poverty of language we describe as God. But God is not God any more than a flower is not flower. God is the direct experience of our true nature, just as the flower is a direct experience of the miracle of germination and color and the indescribable beauty of simply being. However, in this sense, there is no such thing as going home to God. We are already in the living room. All we need to do is sit comfortably in the chair that awaits." Wow. Right? We are already in the living room. We are in the living room. So how do we practice that? What stands in between you, in between me, and the consciousness that fills us constantly knowing that we are in the living room? I believe there are a lot of little things that we have that stand between us. Think for a moment in your own life. What do you let stand between you and your awareness, your full, deep, centered consciousness? Not the you that goes up and down, not the you that thinks and that fears and that goes on all of these mental tangents and emotional adventures, but the you that is the stable, constant you. The you that has always been there in your life, making wise choices, listening to spiritual guidance and wisdom, seeing beyond the moment, seeing beyond the appearance, seeing beyond circumstances, and trusting it with faith. Who is that you? And what stands between that you knowing the truth that we are in the living room of the divine and all the other moments that we may question that? We all have our own little makeup and our own little things that keep us from seeing that we are already there. We are already here. We have already arrived. It's easy to jump off that idea and to say that couldn't possibly be true, isn't it? It's easy to have one experience, to look out at the world one time for one moment and say, I can't see it. It's not looking so good. All it can take sometimes is one loss, one breakup, one death. But life is about birth and death, breakups and comings together, tears, sweat, and sweetness, all of these things. So how do we stay unmoved? How do we recognize God in every moment? Sometimes we can do active things to turn that on, that God consciousness, that experience, that knowing. And sometimes it's a gift that just comes to us, that arrives at our doorstep. Breathe in for a moment and think of a time in your life when you recognized that on the surface, if you were looking with your human condition, if you were looking with your fear mind, if you were looking with limited thought, you might look out and see something as a problem, a big problem. You might have the temptation to start singing a song about not being in the living room of spirit. But then something happened, something shifted, and your vision was transformed. And when you should have been suffering, you were singing. And when you should have been crying, there were tears, but there was something nourishing and sweet about them. Those are the moments that we behold the Christ presence in each other and in our world. And those are moments available and accessible to each one of us. I want to share with you a song I wrote about one of those moments for me, a time in my life when someone could have reacted in a myriad of ways to the situation, the circumstance, the emotional experience. And instead, I saw God. Instead, someone brought the infinite to the table. And through presencing another human being on this planet, awakened a next level of God consciousness. I see the light of God in you, the light, the love comes shining through tonight as we sleep and tomorrow as we wake. Closely to my breast, holding all the love that I can take with me down every road. Though I can't see you, I know in every face I pass, you're there looking back. I see the light of God in you, the light, the love comes shining through. When I left you, you cried, and in my heart, you know I died. You didn't say a word, but I love you and it hurts. How could you be so blind? Oh, my love, you were too kind. It was then that I knew God was living within me and you. I saw the light of God in you, the light, the love came shining through. Now with everyone I meet, their God I try to greet. 'Cause if you read in between the lines, you'll see that you were blind, and there before your eyes something beautiful will arise, something good and something pure, full of love, but still unsure of how to be expressed in this world so full of stress. I hold the light of God in you, the light, the love came shining through. It's my duty as your sister and my calling as your friend, an honor as your daughter, and as your lover. I will not pretend to see what is not true, not of me and not of you. I know the light of God in you, the light, the love I will look to. So that song came out of a 10-year breakup. And one of those knowings, when you know something is complete, and you know that on all accounts, it should be treacherous. There should be upset. But instead, on all accounts, it was infused and saturated with divine love. Sometimes in our human condition, we complicate things, do we not? We underestimate the power of the human spirit that is connected with the all consciousness, the great source, the divine. We underestimate it, and we don't always give it a chance to shine, because we're looking around at a moment and infusing the moment with the idea that it's incomplete or that it's somehow imperfect. And we know in unity, when we use the law of mind action, we know the law of mind action is that my thoughts create my reality. And we may hear that so many times that it becomes trite, or it may even seem not useful to us. But when we dive into the mystical side of that truth, we recognize that we are dancing in the divine, and that it is through our eyes that creation happens. Through our eyes that experience brings God into reality, and through the gifts of each other that we experience God consciousness. So it's ours to stand in a moment and to say, nothing outside of this moment could complete it. When the mind is urging us to say, something will complete it, or something will fix it, and something will make it better, can we stand in our spiritual strength in a moment and say, nothing outside of this moment could complete it. Nothing added or taken away could shift this moment. The shift is in my awareness, my consciousness of what I am seeking, my willingness to see, and my ability to get it. So can I stand in every moment of my life and breathe in a quickening to my ability to get it? That is divine understanding. Can I step away from the lies we tell ourselves? That there's not enough X, Y, Z for A, B, C. Right? We live our lives according to that oftentimes. Can I stand in a moment and say, that's simply my misjudgment, my miscalculation? But right here, I have an ability and I have a willingness to see, to get it. Sometimes we get saturated in too many choices, too little time. We pass by God moments. There was a little forward that came to me this week that I want to share just a couple of morsels of it with you. You know those little forwards, right? Your little email account. And every once in a while you just stop and you go, I like that. I'll read you parts of this one. It says, I got to thinking one day about all of those people on the Titanic who passed up dessert at dinner that fateful night in an effort to cut back. From then on, I tried to be a little more flexible. How often have your kids dropped in to talk and sat in silence while you watched Jeopardy on television? I cannot count the times I called my sister and said, how about going to lunch in a half an hour? She would gasp and stammer, I can't. I have clothes on the line. My hair is dirty. I wish I had known yesterday. I had a late breakfast. It looks like rain. And my personal favorite, it's Monday. She died a few days ago. We never did have lunch together. Because we cram so much into our lives, we tend to schedule our headaches. We live on a sparse diet of promises we make to ourselves when all the conditions are perfect. Breathe into that. We'll go back and visit the grandparents when we get the kids potty trained. We'll entertain when we replace the living room carpet. We'll go on a second honeymoon when we get the 2 more kids out to college. Life has a way of accelerating as we get older. The days get shorter and the list of promises to ourselves gets longer. One morning, we awaken and all we have to show for our lives is a litany of I'm going to, I plan on, someday when things settle down a bit. When anyone calls my seize the moment friend, she is open to an adventure and available for trips. She keeps an open mind on new ideas. Her enthusiasm for life is contagious. You talk with her for 5 minutes and you're ready to trade your bad feet for a pair of rollerblades and skip an elevator for a bungee cord. It closes with this. Now go on and have a nice day. Do something you want to, not something on your should-do list. If you were going to die soon and had only one phone call you could make, who would you call and what would you say, and why are you waiting? I had a friend from high school that I always wanted to call and never did. The other day, her name was in the obituaries, and we never had that chat. When the day is done, do you lie in your bed with the next 100 chores running through your head? Ever told your child we'll do it tomorrow and in haste, not see his sorrow? Ever lost touch? Ever let a good friendship die? Just call to say hi. When we see each moment, when we seize each moment, that's all it takes. We can make it complicated, but it can be as simple as this little forward and all of these little things. A simple moment can mean the most, or it can be deep and as profound as a life-altering moment where we see God. But all it takes is one key, and that key is to step up and to say, I'm willing to get it. I am willing to see. Show me with sweet vision what is here for me to see, what is here for me to experience, what is here for me to embrace. All of these circumstances that we can call good or bad, and we can keep ourselves from peace and keep ourselves from joy. All of these things to do, these lists that can keep us from following our purpose, our joy, our light, our yeses. Are we willing to step out of all of these limitations? The limitations of the mind that call a situation or circumstance bad, the limitations of time and form that say, I can't, it's not. There's not enough XYZ for ABC. There is one reading by Sue Bender that we had for this week, and she is talking about the simple life and how a lot of times we make spirituality so complicated, and she speaks about her time with the Amish. And she says this, I was brought up to believe the more choices I had, the better. But I was drowning in choices. There's a big difference between having a lot of choices and making a choice. There's a big difference between having a lot of choices and making a choice. God cannot choose for us what we will not choose for ourselves. So if we choose to live in a universe where we are not home, where everything is always off, where we call breakups bad and births good, where we stay conditioned by our outer circumstances and our limitation, there is nothing that any God, no matter how powerful, no matter how present, can do to shift that in a moment if it cannot come to us and through us and as each one of us. She goes on in her reading to say, at one moment she realized that we live in a world where nothing one does is ever enough. Where nothing one does is ever enough. When will enough be enough? I began to ask myself. When will enough be enough? When will we recognize that we are constantly in the living room of the divine? And enough is enough because we are home. She talks about her pottery experience and breaking a pot and putting it back together, and what emancipated her, what freed her from this limited consciousness about what perfect and home and whole is. She says, I realize that it's true for each of us. We can spend our time and good energy focused on our imperfections, cracks, slivers, and flaws, or we can shift our perspective to see that those same qualities are what make us unique. She says about her pottery bowl after it was broken, my bowl was far more interesting than before it had cracked. And then I had one of those aha moments. I really saw in every cell of my body. To be whole doesn't mean we have to be perfect. To be whole doesn't mean we have to be perfect. To feel whole, life doesn't have to seem perfect to the eyes, does it? To, in fact, know its wholeness. She closes with this bit from Mother Teresa. When Mother Teresa says, we do not do great things. Mother Teresa says, we do not do great things. We only do small things with great love. Small things with great love. So this week, I invite all of us to check out our level of consciousness in co-creation. To check out what comes to our eyes and through our eyes and from our energy field. To see spirit all over, in the imperfections and the perfections, and to recognize that we determine our experience by the level of the questions we look at and we look through and we ask of the world around us and the world within us. We determine our experience through the level of those questions. Are we asking the question, where is God in this? Or are we asking the question, where is God in this? Where is God in this? And focusing on seeing Spirit in everything. I close with this. This is one of my favorites. And it's from a father, Father William McNamara. And he says this: I even hate to distinguish between a profane world and a sacred world. There is only one world. The degrees are layers of reality in that one world. The closer we come to the center, to the heart of things, the more we find God. If I come to the heart of a human meeting, if I come to the heart of a beautiful woman, if I come to the heart of a dog, I meet God. God is at the heart of everything. We must get off the surface, away from the periphery, and move into the center where the fire is, and there become consumed by the fire and really become alive. Aliveness is the first effect of living a disciplined life. Aliveness is the first effect of living a disciplined life. We must all become disciplined, wild people. That's the spiritual life. You participate in the life of spirit, the Spirit of God. God has no boundaries and no limitations. He is infinitely wild. And so it is.